You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio, where we talk with the world's most successful business owners and leaders to get their tips and strategies for helping you build the business you need for the life you want. I am your host, Ralph Brogden, and I'm here today with Elaine Williams. She is a nationally touring college circuit speaker, an award-winning stand-up comedian, and a certified life coach who provides public speaking coaching and advice to both beginning and experienced speakers. And she helps them to deliver engaging videos and presentations with ease. Her focus on practical performance skills enables speakers to overcome their nerves and to deliver content that connects and entertains audiences so they stop and click or stand and clap and whatever it is you need them to do. That sounds very interesting. Elaine, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ralph. Thanks for having me.
You've got a really interesting background here. Tell me more about what you do and how you got started in doing this.
Oh, sure. So I started this. I've been coaching my whole life. I was always even like the little kid going, "What's your dream? Why aren't you going for it?" You know. and then I fell into performing in the second grade. My parents had divorced when I was young, and I was always sort of searching for family. And I found theater, and I was like, "Yes, applause, love, I'm in." And so I grew up performing, and I did theater and voiceover and TV and some movies and radio. And then I kind of fell into the speaking world on the college circuit because I had 3 addictions, and I was, there was a lot of abuse growing up, and I've, done a lot of work on healing. So I used to go speak at the college campuses, but I would use humor because it was really heavy topics like alcohol, drugs,
Mm-hmm.
And people kept saying, Elaine, if you can make people laugh about such heavy topics, you should teach other people how to be more engaging speakers. And so it just kind of evolved into that. And, I love speaking, and I love working with other speakers who want to be out there more. And, most people are terrified of how they look or how they sound or just of the audience. So I work with them to help them, get through those blocks so that they can get out and share their message.
That's really cool. And your website is cool also. The name of it is captivatethecrowd.com. So that's really neat. How do business owners, speakers, subject matter experts, how do they captivate the crowd in the way that you're talking about, to be able to inject some humor or some emotion into something? I mean, I would think typically subject matter experts are really straight-laced and serious.
Right.
Is that a problem?
Yes, it is. Because, even if you're giving the most delicious, amazing content, we're all ADD these days, and you need to, make sure that it's compelling and engaging. And here's the thing. A lot of people think, oh, I don't have talent. Well, I think talent is overrated. I'm a huge fan of Malcolm Gladwell, The Outliers.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all were born without speaking anything, and we practiced, right? Some people learn 5 million languages. I'm just sticking with one. I tried French, but, whatever. I wish I'd taken Spanish, but, we practice. And how do you get better at something? You practice. And so a lot of times people just need a nurturing coach, a cheerleader going, yes, that's great. Okay, let's try this. Just, a lot of people don't even know how to rehearse. And so I love to get with people and just work with them. And first I get them centered, Ralph, and I get them, why did you start your company? Why did you start your coaching business, your service, like you want to help people. And when I get them really centered and grounded in their why, their mission, and get them connected with just helping one person, when we're doing camera work, when you can just focus on, you're just speaking to one person who desperately needs your help and you want to help them. And when they can drop into that place, then they're not so worried about how they look, their hair, their lipstick, their, whatever. It's so the attention goes off of themselves and they get free. They're totally freed up from that. So that's one of the millions of things I do with people.
That's cool. Tell me about some of your first experiences as you began your speaking career, and what led you to make this shift over into injecting humor and comedy into your talks.
That's a great question, Ralph. And I love to tell this story because people go, oh, well, it's easy for you, Elaine, because you've been performing your whole life. But it wasn't. The first time I went to a Toastmasters meeting, I had actually been coaching one of my clients, and we were friends first. So it was just sort of a natural, let me help you with this, do this, breathe, And I went to go support her, and it was at the Bar building in New York City. So there was lots of marble and judges with robes, and it was very intimidating, and it was definitely out of my comfort zone. And they called on me to stand up and speak, and I literally stood up and I went, and my heart started pounding, and my palms got sweaty, and my mind went blank, and I said 3 words, and I sat back down, and I was laughing because here I've been performing my whole life, but learning how to speak as myself was a totally different experience. So I had to practice. I had to keep practicing. And then the humor stuff, I grew up doing musical theater. And then when I got to New York City, I was very focused on acting and going, and it's intense. You've lived here, right? And so I was very serious, and people would say, oh, you're really kind of funny. You're not really fun to be around right now, Elaine, but you're really funny. And I was like, what do you mean? I was just angry. I was dealing with a lot of stuff. I knew 2 people, and you sneeze and it's $20. Everything is just expensive. And so I just started slowly doing stand-up comedy, and I found that it was helping me in my regular life too, of just lightening up. And so I started incorporating it more and more into the work that I was doing on the college campuses, because I was talking about addictions, eating disorders, drugs, alcohol, pretty heavy topics. And so I found that when I used humor, it helped people stay present, and it relieved the tension. So, and it's such a great way to diffuse tense situations.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really different for the professional people that you work with. They're probably very monodimensional, and they're like, I've got to be very serious, or I have a serious topic. And you just kind of turn that around and help them to engage their audience. Maybe, I guess that would be a struggle for a lot of people. And, they say that speaking, that people fear that more than they do death itself.
I know.
So when you're working with people, other than just the fear of having to get up and give a speech or a presentation, what's some of the most common problems you see with the people that you're trying to help?
Well, it's interesting. I just came from a shoot that we did. I worked with 2 other people, and every client that we worked with had different needs, and different sort of levels of competence. All were amazing with their business and what they were doing. And some people just needed to, just get all the noise out of their head, and then they were fine. And some other people needed a lot more hands-on, let's do this, longer warm-ups. But I think one of the most common things is nobody likes how they look on camera. Nobody. I've yet to hear somebody go, oh my God, I look gorgeous today. we are constantly our hardest critics, and we're constantly, oh, look at my hair. Oh my gosh, I'm so short. I'm so, and so I always tell people that, like, because I think it helps take the pressure off, because I think there's still a lot of fear of being cyberbullied. And I know for a fact, I have a friend who worked with several people who had a brick and mortar business, like a real store that was successful. And then they spent all this time and energy and money putting their stuff online, and they couldn't launch because they just felt afraid of like not being able to control it in cyberspace. And I think that's a really valid fear. And so one of my mentors helped me with that, and I'll share that. So when I very first started doing Facebook Lives last year, I was kind of being sort of like, hey, like, I hope you like me. I'm just gonna kind of do this thing here, and I was being timid.
Yeah, be gentle. I was
being, like, not myself, and I know underneath that I was afraid someone was going to make fun of me, and I had heard about the trolls. The people who just have nothing better than to, cruise around the internet saying mean things about people.
Yeah.
And so I was like totally on that wavelength, and then luckily one of my mentors said, no, if you get a cyberbully, that's actually a sign that you're doing well, like, welcome it, because that means you're coming out, you're cutting through all the noise, you're standing there, you're bold, you're fearless. Like, you're saying, hey, this is what I do. And some of you may run the other way, but some people are going to love it and dig me. So let's go. And it just being able to shift that and look at it like, oh my gosh, it's actually a sign of good movement. It freed me up. So I work with just changing a lot of people's hidden beliefs about, we all have these subconscious beliefs holding us back. And so I work a lot with that, and I do tapping, EFT, emotional release. And I'm really a big fan too, Ralph, of like warming up, getting in the zone, teaching your body, like, all right, let's do this. Because some days are better than others, but if you have a specific warm-up routine, you train yourself to be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Okay, I got to focus. I'm going to do my vocal exercises. I'm going to get on my breath. And then you're able to overcome the allergies, the headache, the feeling sluggish, whatever it is, because we're humans. We have good and, off days and we're on days.
Sure. Now, in your public speaking coaching, you work with beginning speakers and experienced speakers.
Yes.
Tell me the difference. What is a beginning speaker most likely to struggle with compared to an experienced speaker?
That's a great question. So a lot of times beginners, they're better than they give themselves credit for, and they just need to practice so that they can kind of get some speaking under their belt and build their confidence. And a lot of times once they get going, they're like, oh my gosh, that was really fun. So a lot of times it's just kind of getting them over that initial hump. I just love that. It's such a joy. And then sometimes my more advanced speakers, sometimes they think they're better than they are, because maybe they're, and I say that with love, because I think we've all been there. And one of, again, I preach a lot of humility, like a humble servant. Like, anytime you're on stage, to me, it's a gift. It's like the theater, it's like church, it's like anytime you're on any kind of stage, it's such an honor. And I think sometimes people forget that. And you always want to honor the audience. You never want to make fun of them if only a few people came out. I mean, this happens more in the comedy world, but so sometimes with my advanced speakers, I'm working on switching some of their bad habits. Sometimes they go into now I'm the announcer voice, and we will discuss. And it's just a little too like, Hail Caesar, like, okay, this is not Shakespeare. And
a little too much William Shatner, right?
Yes. And I'm all about, be dramatic, tell entertaining stories, but also you got to drop down and be real, because people can smell it if you're not, and so like I was working with this one guy with his TED Talk, and he had this really entertaining persona and this deep, rich voice. And you can tell he just usually wowed them. But I was like, okay, we gotta be more real. So we did this Meisner repetition that I did in acting school at the neighborhood playhouse. And it is so great. It kind of strips away any sort of mask or any pretense. So a lot of times I'm kind of bringing them back in and starting, kind of back to the basics a little bit, just to get more grounded and more authentic and more vulnerable.
That's really cool. I like how you're working with beginning speakers to kind of pump them up and get them going, but with experienced speakers, you're trying to tone them down a little bit.
Yes, you could say that, and everybody's slightly different.
Neat. So let's say that the average person listening to this, they're not necessarily going to give a TED Talk. They might, but for the most part, even if we're not professional speakers, business owners, leaders, all of us probably need to give presentations. All of us probably should be doing more with video. And so a lot of people are kind of intimidated by that. But what is something that someone could do right now that they could begin to be a better speaker along the lines of what we've been talking about? What do you suggest as a way to get started?
Well, I love to watch other speakers. So I'll go on YouTube. I do watch TED Talks, but I will, just click around on web pages and look at people and start dissecting why are they engaging or not. And then another thing is a lot of people don't know how to rehearse. So here's one of my most basic breathing techniques, which is you want to have breath control so that you can do a whole phrase and carry it all the way through without having to take a breath. And then, so you can use the power of the pause. You want to have vocal variety. So one of my favorite things is when you're going to breathe in and then you're going to breathe out on an S. So you're going to breathe in and breathe out on an S. And repeat that a few times. And that is a great way to get breath control, to get on the breath, and to practice having longer breaths. It's a style breath technique. So that's one thing. And then another thing is if you know that you're going to be speaking, start speaking your talk out loud. That's what actors do. Whenever we go, I'm sorry, I was getting a delivery. Sorry about the doorbell. Whenever we actors, when they're at commercials, we're always like saying we're saying the words out loud. We're not just like reading the script. We're saying, oh my gosh, Colgate can help my breath too. Or, whatever we're going to say, we're saying it out loud to practice, to get the muscles in your mouth, the muscle memory. So those are two quick tips that can really make a huge difference. They're simple, but they're powerful.
That's good advice. I'm speaking with Elaine Williams. She is an award-winning stand-up comedian, certified life coach, and she helps with people who are trying to improve their public speaking skills, working with beginning and experienced speakers to not only speak better, but to create those engaging videos and presentations that will connect with audiences and entertain them as well. So, Elaine, tell me about your family. How's that for a transition?
That's so cute. Well, it's funny because on the East Coast, people will say, Elaine, are you Irish? Are you Scandinavian? I say, oh, I'm alcoholic white trash Texan. My family does donuts, double wides, and divorce. And I love them, but I came from a crazy Texas family. And people always want to know, Elaine, do you have kids? I'm like, they would starve. Are you kidding? I'd be at work. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I forgot to water Billy. Oh no. But I am an aunt, Ralph, which I adore. And although it's expensive, last Christmas I spent so much money on my brother's kids' gifts. And you know what I got in return? Nothing. A picture of them in the bathtub. So I decided next year I'm going to give them a picture of me on the toilet. Thank you. You're a great audience. Thank you. Tip your waiter. No, wait. Try the veal. Wait.
So you have discovered the knack of being able to connect with audiences by using humor. And you talked about some of the serious subjects that you deal with, the serious subject matter. And so that my takeaway from listening to you is that anybody can take whatever topic it is they're an expert in and find something humorous to inject into it. And why do you do that?
Well, I think, again, I think it's, and humor is tricky. It's harder than people realize. There's a joke in the theater world, tragedy is easy, comedy is hard. There's so many nuances and the timing and the context. And so I had 3 addictions and I was assaulted as a preteen and then my freshman year in college. So heavy, heavy topics. But I knew that if I could bring some humor to it, I could make it palatable. Because who wants to talk about that stuff? It's like, oh gosh, right?
Yeah.
So I would also set the context, Ralph. And I learned this the hard way. So I would say, okay, we're going to talk about some tough subjects today, but I want to use humor because humor has helped me heal. And I believe that we can reach more people when when we can laugh about stuff. And I said, but I would never make fun of anybody else or their addiction. I just make fun of myself and my family because it helped me heal. But I said, do I have your permission? Is that okay with you guys if I make jokes about myself and then we're going to get serious and then we're going to laugh some more at the end? So I get them to buy in with me so that they're not offended.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, when you kind of set a context like that, people are relieved. They know, oh, okay. They kind of know what to expect. And they know that it's not going to be all like very intense. Let's talk about addiction, kind of thing. Right. Because it's like, who wants to, the minute you say, alcoholic or assault, people clench, and they stop breathing. And it's like, no wonder we still have these issues in our society, because if we can't talk about them, we can't educate people to bring awareness to help so we can stop, right? But if we're all in fight or flight, which is what happens, then you can't even stay in the conversation. So I started using humor and it seemed to work, and people would stay and then they would, and I showed them, this is horrible if this happened to you. I'm sorry. But if you get some help and get some therapy and do some work, you don't have to let it define you. You will be able to laugh again. So,
I think that's really important. And I wanted to ask, do you think that with the clients that you work with, do you think that anyone can take any subject and find something humorous about it in the right context to help connect with the audience? Or is there a time when humor maybe is not appropriate? What do you think?
Well, I think it's situational. I really think it's situational, but I also think, if you can, again, setting up the context, there's the topic of rape. I don't think people should make jokes about that. That's just my thing. And then I think, I don't like racial humor because I think we have enough, I feel like we have enough meanness in the world. And then again, I know this Italian comic from Boston, and he is so loving. And he says the meanest things, but he says them with such love. And he makes it, and it's to me, that's an art. And I don't think everybody can do that. So he gets away with it. And he says things that I don't think I could get away with. And, so I think it depends. But, another thing I love to work with my people about is, you don't have to stand up there and tell jokes. If you're a speaker, you can show funny slides. You can, one of the things I talk about, the rules of 3. So let me give you an example. So when I first started doing comedy, I didn't know how to write. And they say, right, it's got to be autobiographical, but it's got to be universal, but it's got to be specific to you, but they have to be able to relate. And you're like in a straitjacket. Like, how am I going to write anything? So I gave myself permission to write like a bad joke. I said, Elaine, just write jokes. Don't put pressure on yourself. Just try to get in the habit of writing. So I wrote this joke, and it's very simple, but it works all the time. And so here goes. New York City in the summertime. I love it. The sun on my face, the wind on my back, the smell of pee everywhere. That's a very, people might call that hacky, but it's a great opener, and it's not going to insult anybody. It's pretty clean. It's a good, like, kind of testing the audience. And I think that every speaker can come up with some kind of basic joke about their industry or their topic, or, like I knew a tax person who was like, all right, so today we're going to talk about the tax code of blah, blah, blah. I know you're thinking sexy. Or I can't wait. And just like, to me, if you can start off a presentation with a little bit of that, people will be so grateful.
Yeah.
They'll be so grateful. And also, it's an unexpected bonus. If you go to comedy shows, people are sitting there with their arms crossed, like, you better make me laugh.
Yeah.
If you go to most other events, it's delicious and it's not expected. So the bar is lower.
I like that. And I'm already, my mind is spinning with ways that I can apply this to different things, because in communications, we talk a lot about the power of telling stories. And
Right.
so I'm thinking, for example, if you're at a funeral and you're giving the eulogy, what really makes those events memorable is when someone can stand up and tell not a joke, but tell a funny story about the person who has passed.
Right.
And for some reason, in that environment, in that context, inserting the funny story about some misadventure that you had, it gets people to laugh. It's an emotional release as much as the grieving is. And what I hear you saying is that humor is healing.
It is. And Ralph, that's such a great point. And here's the thing, like most funerals, I mean, it's sad. We're trying to pay respects. We're processing. There's a lot going on, right? Sometimes there's family dynamics and, you could probably write a whole soap opera for every funeral, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the gift of humor, it releases some of that tension. And that's why a good drama playwright uses humor. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Les Miserables.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite shows. I saw it like 9 times. I still haven't seen the movie, but it's very heavy. There's a lot of heartache and another day. At the end of the day, you're another day older. It's like there's a lot of stuff going on, and then you have these 2 master of the house, very comedic people who come out, and the audience is dying to laugh at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely a great. Yeah, it's so great to have that release of tension. You cannot, I think sometimes speakers, when they have heavy topics or just so much information, you cannot just hit people over the head with like information and information and information. You've got to have some levity or where people can breathe or stretch or move.
I really like that. That's probably the number one takeaway from this very informative and very educational interview that you and I are doing right now. The number one takeaway is we've got to find a way to engage our audience, and you can't engage them with overloading them, bombarding them with information. You also have to reach them on an emotional level. Humor is a great way to do that.
Yes. And, one more tip, if I may, Ralph, just for your
Sure.
listeners. I was at this event in San Diego, and I was speaking with this woman, and she was like beautiful. Like she looked like a little doll. She was, this blonde, petite, very put together. And she does a pretty dry topic, some kind of pharmaco thing. And I said, okay, so, if I was in your audience, you walk out, I can't relate to you. You look too perfect and too put together. And she goes, oh, if you only knew. I said, that's it. That's it. You need to come out. And even though you look a certain way and you're going to be presenting all this stuff, you need to come out and talk about, I may look like I have it all together, but you should have seen me. I was the worst mother ever today. I sent my kids out with Pop-Tarts or, like some kind of self-deprecating thing so that we can see your humanity.
That's really
because
good.
If somebody comes out and it's all credentials, oh my gosh, I'm already asleep. I can't relate.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, I'm sure every audience is different, and you would need to be mindful about, if you were speaking to the president of a company and pitching, that's slightly different. But just, we need to know that you're human and that you can be vulnerable and authentic, and then we care.
Well, it's the threefold cord of people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust.
Yep.
And it's hard to like somebody if you don't give them any emotional support or any way to know them and to like them. But we do tend to like people that are funny and vulnerable, and they feel like they're more approachable.
Yes. And, that's one thing I'm working on, Ralph, because I love to be self-deprecating. So I have to remember, I need to talk about my credibility too. Because I have a tendency to go so vulnerable. They're like, but Elaine, have you done all this stuff? I'm like, oh yeah. So and I think every situation you can kind of decide, okay, maybe I need to hit more of my credibility first, or, okay, this sounds like I really sound like amazing. I better be vulnerable. It can depend on the intro and, your audience.
Well, one way that I enjoy doing it is to go back and start talking about how I made my beginning in advertising. So today I'm talking about persuasion and psychology of marketing and strategic communications and so forth. But I go back and start telling the story of how I got started in advertising. And it's a long drawn out story, but it's kind of humorous because it shows I didn't know a thing in the world. I had no clue what I was doing. I was successful accidentally in spite of myself. It had nothing to do with my skills. They came later. And now I've got enough education to realize I didn't know a thing in the world back then. And yet by accident, somehow I was able to sell stuff, and then kind of transition into anybody can learn this.
Right.
Right. So that's really, that's encouraging and inspiring to me to figure out more ways to work that into my talks and be a better speaker. But tell me, Elaine, what are you working on right now that has you really excited?
Oh, thank you, Ralph. Well, I'm going to be doing another group program, Captivate the Crowd. And I literally just got back from a boot camp that I did in San Diego. So I'm still looking at the dates, but I am so excited because it has, we go over confidence, connection, storytelling, voice, body, breath, putting it all together. And every call we do some practice. It's Zoom, it's live Zoom calls. So we do practice. We're on the court as well. So I have people do exercises so they just get used to being on camera in front of each other. And it's a safe, supportive space. And I always tell my students, use me while you got me. So in fact, I have 3 videos to watch from one of my students later today. So, we work a lot on video, but it also helps get ready for stage. So I'm going to be launching another group program. I'm not exactly sure when, but coming up. So I will keep you posted if I may. And I have a benefit coming up where I'm doing a comedy show for a high school band. We're raising money, and the date just got pushed back again. So I got to talk to those people, but I'm excited about that. And then I'm actually coming to the South. I'm coming to South Carolina in
cool.
June, and I'm I'm excited. I'm going to be with family, but I'm looking to put together a workshop there too. So I always seem to have about 5 projects cooking.
Well, that's really neat. You've got your hands in a lot of interesting and intriguing projects. The best way for our listeners to get in touch with you is through your website.
Sure. Yes. If you go to captivatethecrowd.com, there is a really cool, it's a story connect tool. And it's one of the ways I demonstrate how to do it. And it's a way to create instant rapport really quick. And it's about showing your humanity and with a common thing. Like, you can talk about like the worst car you had, or like the craziest roommate, or embarrassing moments, awkward first dates. There's a list of topics, but it's a great way to show your humanity before you get into like heavy teaching. And it's a great way for the audience to be able to relate to you and hear themselves in you. So I call it it's instant rapport. And it's, because it's like, I feel like every time you're speaking, it's kind of like a first date at first, they're like checking you out and you're checking them out, and you go along. So it's just a great way to guide people so that you're not just like, hey, okay, so we're going to dive right in. It's like, whoa. So that is the Instant Story Connect tool. And if you sign up on my newsletter, you'll get that emailed to you. And then I have some other free training that goes out too. Because I just love helping people, Ralph. And I feel like we're at a really exciting time where there's so much available. And obviously I want to help people with, their mission and purpose to get out there and help make a difference in the world and help heal the planet. And, I feel like there's so much love and possibility, and we just have to keep putting it out there. So hopefully we can, help these cyberbullies and either get them off the internet or get them on our team,
Yeah. I love it. Well, it's been really neat connecting with you. You have definitely put a smile on my face, and I feel like you've already shared so much wisdom so far. But any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share with us as we close? Sure.
I still go through some days like, I feel fat today, and it's so easy to not make a video or to not pick up the phone to go ask to speak at the thing. And so I just invite you, to just take a minute and think about like how somebody helped you and how there's somebody out there who's praying for you and your message. And, when you can get connected to that, then that it's so much bigger than like, okay, so I look a little, frumpy today, whatever. Like my mission and my purpose is so much bigger than how I look on the outside. So I just encourage people, like, get out there and share your message and your purpose because it's needed and people are praying for you. And this is, a pivotal time in our lives with all the stuff that's going on. So we need you.
Excellent. Elaine Williams, she's a professional speaker, award-winning stand-up comedian, and she provides coaching and advice to beginning and experienced speakers, helping them to deliver engaging videos and presentations, content that connects and entertains audiences. You can find out more about Elaine at captivatethecrowd.com. Elaine, thanks so much for being on the episode today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at ralphbrogden.com.